You're listening to the Values and Leadership Podcast, where business leaders share their stories of purposeful impact and success.
Welcome to the Values and Leadership Podcast, the podcast for innovative leaders who want to apply new ways of doing things in work to become more successful and have a purposeful impact on their stakeholders. I am your host, Ahmed Arif. We invite corporate leaders, advisors, and owners who believe in participative leadership and love to share their positive life and business experiences, their sense of direction, sense of meaning, and how they challenge their thinking in growing their business and the people around them to their next best stage. In this episode, we are discussing recruitment practices for purpose-driven businesses with Murali, the Vice President of the recruitment and project staffing firm, the Ian Martin Group. A 30-year career in human resource and IT has allowed Murali to hone his awareness of recruiting, best practices, tools, and technologies, while lending him insight into the future of work and the ever-changing world of recruitment. Welcome to the show, Murali.
Happy to be here. Thank you, Ahmed.
Great. Now everyone is working from home, so everybody is a little bit relaxed. What do you think about working from home? What's your experience?
I happen to be working from home even pre-COVID days, so it wasn't a very big change for me. But it's pretty interesting because when our whole company went working from home, we were all worried about and anxious about the challenges and how things are going to work out. But it is amazing as to, I think it's partly how human beings adapt to situations. And a month or two later, things are going without a hitch. And actually now we start thinking about maybe even after COVID, should more people continue to work from home? That gives them a better balance, a work-life balance.
Interesting. Great. So let's start about going back through your career. So throughout your career, from Mastech Pro Worldwide to Ian Martin, how have you seen hiring system such as Fitzy now in Ian Martin evolve to meet the new needs of purpose-driven businesses?
Yeah, I have been now, it's over 30 years. No, it's probably over 40 years of working life. But over 25 years of that has been in the United States and predominantly in the contingent staffing industry. And I've seen a lot of changes in the contingent staffing industry, how profit margins have been squeezed, how the internet began to play a more and more important role. To today, we have gone to the extent of saying, can artificial intelligence come and help and talk to candidates directly? And so it's been a very interesting journey. But to me, the key turning point in my own long career happened about 6 years ago. 6 years ago, I met with a young 34-year-old CEO of Ian Martin. His name is Tim Masson. And we got talking about the possibility of me coming and working with Ian Martin. And I was always intrigued by Ian Martin because it was a B-Corp. For those of your listeners who don't know what a B-Corp is it's a certification. You can find them at bcorporation.net, I think. It's a certification that makes sure the letter B stands for benefit. So it is not enough if you benefit your bottom line. You got to benefit your employees. You got to benefit your vendors. You got to benefit your customers. You got to benefit your immediate community, and you got to benefit the environment. In other words, it's a lot more socially conscious way of running business. That's what attracted me to Ian Martin. So he and I had dinner together and we kept talking about this. And we talked about managing polarities. We talked about how do you manage freedom and responsibility. It is not freedom or responsibility, but it is freedom and responsibility. How do you manage truth and tact? So when we were talking about these polarities, he mentioned for him and the company, the crux polarity was profit and purpose. I was bored at that point of time. He had me. So I've been working for private entrepreneurs, Wall Street listed companies for so many years. And you have a mindset. The mindset is there are for-profit companies, there are non-profit companies. For-profit companies breathe and live and eat profit and nothing else makes sense to them. Non-profit is all about purpose. But here's the guy who says, why can't we have profit and purpose? And I think that was, it was a remarkable moment in my life, moment of time, that I happened to meet this guy and join this company, and now I'm continuing the journey. That is what makes us unique in terms of who we are and how we operate.
So from your experience, you were working before in companies profit-driven, and now we are working in a company which is making a balance between profits and purpose, or maybe prioritizing purpose over profit. So definitely there will be different practices and different management behavior you have experienced in A.M. Martin, different than the normal corporate. So can you shed light on the differences between both?
I'll give you an example of my own experience. I built a lot of offshore-based recruiting organizations for the North American companies I work. I built organizations in various cities of India, built ones in Sofia, Bulgaria, in Costa Rica, and so on and so forth. In today's Indian environment, there are probably tens of thousands of recruiters who work U.S. time zones, who work in the nights, in other words, recruiting people in North America. And there are probably more than a couple of thousand companies, tens of thousands of employees. But the underlying thing that I noticed with many of them was there was a complete lack of trust by the employer to the employee. Because it's a high pressure environment. Job orders come in from the United States or Canada. They get filled very soon. So you have to be on your toes, on the job, quickly find good candidates, interview them, close them, submit them, etc. But it's become such a horrific environment that employees are, how many bathroom breaks they take is monitored. Employers use keyboard monitoring software. Oh, your cursor hasn't moved for the last 180 seconds. What the hell are you doing, Mr. Employee?
Wow.
I mean, to me, it is demeaning to treat human beings like this. So when I started in Bangalore about 5 years ago, 6 years ago, there was a particular evening. I remember this story very well. That evening happened to be, I think your listeners in the Middle East will appreciate this. It was a T20 or the World Series, World Cup one-day match between India and Pakistan. Most people in India and Pakistan know that is the biggest day for them, India playing Pakistan.
Yeah.
And the match timing was such that the peak working hours of a night shift based company would be impacted. Right? So, and the match was 3-4 days down the road, and the floor leaders came to me, the recruiting floor leaders came to me and said, Murali, what do we do? We know what is likely to happen. What is likely to happen? A lot of our employees are going to fall sick or claim they've fallen sick and they're not going to come into work. And those who come into work will be busy sneaking out to the bathrooms and out to the porches to check their cell phone for scores. What do we do? So the day is gone for us. A massive loss of productivity. So I thought about it for a moment and said, get a television set into the office. Get a cable TV provider, and I want the telecast to be be shown live on our television, and let's all watch it together. And my floor managers thought I had lost my mind completely. And when we announced it, employees were looking at what is going on here. What kind of a company is this? And because they all come from other companies where this was not heard of. And I did not even say that we are doing this, and if we do this, you must do something in return. No, we never said any such thing. Hey, we're all interested in cricket. We all want to know what's going on. Let's watch it together. So we watched it together. I didn't say anything that you got to stay back tonight. Remember, our work in India starts at 5:30 p.m. and ends at 3 a.m.
Mm.
People stayed on after 3 a.m. And one of the key KPIs is how many resumes go to a client per day. Per recruiter per day, how many resumes go to a client. That's a key measure for us. We broke all the records on that day.
Wow.
When half the day was spent watching cricket.
Mm.
Half the day was spent watching cricket, and yet they submitted more candidates to clients than any other day.
Mm.
People, Ahmed, people behave the way you expect them to behave.
Mm.
You expect them to be cheats and not be trustworthy, then they won't be trustworthy. So that's a lesson I've learned that's always held me in good stead. And I believe that, trust people. They repay you with interest.
Mm. Yes, very insightful. Yeah. Because trust is very important, and trust is something which is lacking in the normal environment, and it comes from the top. You as the leader, when you give them the trust, your employee the trust, and you were very thoughtful to them to think the way they are thinking, because you sense that they are worried about their performance. So you're very thoughtful. You put yourself in their mindset. Then you start to act as them, not as you as a leader who's looking for the KPIs. And suddenly you were repaid with the KPIs and more than the KPIs that you were expecting as a leader. So you applied empathy. You were very
Yeah.
thoughtful. You were very thoughtful with them. This is great. I think even after this event, things has turned to be different. I think so.
Yes, we have continued on the journey. I always say this: we want our employees to. I differentiate between wanting to go to work and having to go to work. Right? If you get up in the morning and say, "Oh my God, another day I have to go to work," versus you get up in the morning and say, "Ha, I want to go to work today." There's a big difference between the two: wanting to go to work and having to go to work. And so the idea is to create an environment where people want to come to work. And not being forced to go to work because I'm going to work because otherwise I won't get paid. No, I want to go to work because it's fun to go to work. Having said that, there is a challenge here. Not everybody has the maturity to handle this level of freedom, right? That is where the challenges remain for an organization that is pushing down decision making to the lowest levels. Now, of course, it's the post-COVID working from home model. 4 or 5 years ago, a junior employee of ours told us, "I'm going home for a festival and I would like to stay back and take care of some family issues, but I'll work from home those days. I need your permission." And my response to him was, "I'm nobody to give you permission. It is your decision to make." He said, "What do you mean it's my decision to make?" "Yes, my dear friend. You know what you're responsible for. If you believe you can continue, you can carry out those responsibilities while working from home, you decide to work from home. So you have the freedom to make the decision, but you also need to responsibly handle that freedom." If you come back 1 week later, instead of working from home, is, "Oh, I did not have electricity at home. I had internet issues at home." No, that's not on. You ought to have checked all that before saying, "I will work from home." So this is what we call about the polarity of freedom and responsibility. So when we do this, you have 22-year-olds, you have 23-year-olds. Do all of them handle this freedom with responsibility? Sometimes no. Then we have to educate them further and explain to them and course correct them. So those are definitely the challenges. But as we continued on this path, the Ian Martin Group has one of our subsidiaries is FITCI. FITCI is a smaller outfit that small and medium businesses in North America. FITCI had taken this concept much farther and became what is known as a teal company. And we saw in front of our eyes how teal was flowing out, and along with its challenges, along with its benefits. And at some point of time, we said it's time for the whole of the Ian Martin group to go teal. And teal is, it's a terminology, it's a color scheme. The guy who wrote a book called Reinventing Organizations, the author's name is Frederick Laloux. He basically divides organizational structures, and he uses color schemes to define various types of structures. And in his mind, the ultimate evolution from the current structures to a completely self-managed structure is what he defines as the teal culture. And I found it remarkable when I read the book, because there's a statistic that stuck in my head, that a 2013 Gallup poll found out only 13% of the employees worldwide are engaged at work. 13%. 63% were not engaged. 24% were actively disengaged. So that should tell us there is something wrong with the modern corporation. Right? And I think that I was like, even if you're able to move the 13% to 14, 15, 16, the gazillions of dollars that will get added to the GDP of the world is mind-blowing. It's staggering. And that is his premise, that something in today's organizations are broken. And and that is how he brought out this book called Reinventing Organizations. I highly recommend this book to our listeners. And that is what, so that's it's like the Bible for us. Like, it's a book that we follow as to how to build a teal organization. And we've been in the journey. It's not a switch that one day you wake up and put a switch on and it's now become a teal organization. It's a journey, it's a process, and we are in that. And I think primarily he talks about, don't treat people like machines. Companies typically treat people like machines, or there are certain companies that treat people like children. People are neither machines nor children. They're fully grown up. The thing was that how many millions of minds are not even considered during a decision-making process in the current way of doing things, where somebody at the top decides what is good for the organization.
Well, it's very interesting when you mentioned that a subsidiary called FITSI under Ian Martin Group has led the Ian Martin Group to change their thinking about teal. So what specifically FITSI did? What results? What are the things unique that they did that made Ian Martin Group change its orientation?
FITSI was a small startup. So, and I think but we all worked in the same building, and we were all, interacting with each other every day. And for us, and FITSI was, since it was, I would call, they were the pioneers of teal. We could see the challenges. It's always better to be the follower than the pioneer, right? Because the follower can avoid making mistakes that the pioneer made.
Yes.
Right? And in this case, the pioneers were here to teach us, hey, we made these mistakes, don't make these mistakes. Right? I remember talking to FITSI people when they were telling me about their teal journey. I was a cynic. I told them that this won't work for us. This may work for you. And they had a good laugh at my expense, and even today they laugh at my expense, and I'm happy to be laughed at. I'm happy to have been proved wrong. Right? So, but a number of things. I would say that I connect FTSE to Lalou's book, because when I read the Lalou's book, Reinventing Organizations, and I'm seeing what is happening in FTSE in front of me, it's like a light bulb went on my head. Oh my God, this is so possible. This is real. And I think that's we have continued. Obviously, FTSE at that time, FTSE was only a 20-man company. Here we are about 350 people. But we have been able to do this over the last few years, where we took initially groups that volunteered to go teal, and we taught them. We have a we call it as a playbook. Our playbook starts. It's a flow chart that starts with a top line that says, "Notice a problem / opportunity," and then the flow chart tells you what are your various options when you notice a problem or an opportunity. In other words, what you're saying is your title doesn't matter. You don't have to be a vice president to notice a problem or an opportunity. You could be anybody who notices a problem or an opportunity. Then there is a flow chart that tells you what are the various options in front of you to do something about it. And that is what, so those are, we have a set of common practices which we teach everybody. And as a few groups started volunteering to go teal, eventually, I think 2019, January 1st, we said, let the company go teal, fully knowing it doesn't mean on January 2nd, the company becomes teal. Right? We know that it was a journey, and we know that there will be challenges. There are people who struggle with giving up the old hierarchical command and control way of working. I was used to telling people what to do. And people did it because I was a senior guy. I had a title. But suddenly now I don't have positional authority. I cannot hire anybody without a consent process. I cannot fire anybody without a consent process. Nobody can. My CEO we're a privately owned company. My CEO, 100%, he and his wife own the company, but they cannot hire and fire anybody as they wish. They have voluntarily given up that authority. So to me, it is combined wisdom of many is always better than an individual's wisdom. So everything we do is geared towards that. How do you collect multi-wisdom, and then using that wisdom that you collected from others, you make your decisions. So that to me is the key, that this thing about I am the boss, I have 25 years of experience, I went to Harvard or wherever so I am the greatest, so I know it all, and all of you just do what I tell you to do. We think that is just hopelessly wrong, and people don't feel the sense of accountability for doing something that they had no say in it. Right? When you ask for advice from people, ultimately there could be different opinions and everything cannot be accommodated. But the fact that you ask the person for his or her opinion makes a difference to that person. I was consulted. I was considered an intelligent human being. You treated me as an intelligent human being. That's all I can say about this. Yeah.
Great. When you mentioned that when there is an opportunity or a problem arises, then anyone can take a decision. So how does that flows into the company?
So we call it the advice process. So in fact, there's another book I want to that shaped my mind a lot. It's a book called Decision Maker by Dennis Bakke, Bakke. He wrote this book. He ran a teal organization at American Electric Supply, AES, which is a multi-million-dollar, multi-thousand employee company. And based on that, he wrote this book. And that's where I read this term advice process a lot. So basically, his point is that in any teal organization, Well, let me give you an example of an organization called FAVI. It's a French aluminum foundry company.
Yep.
The lowest junior worker has the authority to buy a $250,000 machine.
Mm.
The lowest paid worker can can be the decision maker to buy a $250,000 machine. But what does he need to do?
Mm.
He needs to go through an advice process. So we can help him with who should be the advisors for this. There should be somebody from finance. There should be advice from somebody who has taken a decision like this in the past. So there's a group of people who are his advisors. But why is he the decision maker? Because he is the one who's going to operate the machine. He's the one who knows from his past experience what kind of machines work, what kind of machines fail. So that is why we send down decision making to its lowest actual working level. But there are other things he does not know. So he seeks advice.
Yes.
So that is how we have injected this advice process into everything we do. Ultimately, our goal is even compensation. Don't go to your manager asking for a raise. You do a compensation advice process and decide your own compensation. You don't like your role that you are in, you want to change your role, we call it doing a role advice process. So there is multiple advice processes that are happening in the company at any given point of time, raised by anybody.
So does this mean that there is no budget and there is no targets, or what?
Interesting question. There are budgets, but to me, we call the budget as a guideline. Because if you go back to Lalou's Reinventing Organizations and other writers, they talk about predict and control versus sense and respond. Okay, the old way of doing things, which is 99% of probably corporate world today, is still trying to predict and control. And this is a great time to talk about it. Let's say they predicted whatever goals that they would achieve this year, and then they try to control their workforce and their policies according to the prediction. Okay, what happens when COVID hit you? All the prediction went out of the window.
Yes.
Right? So what happens in the Chinese market? What happens in the gold market? What happens in the oil market? There's so many things that you're not in control of. So how on earth can you predict and control? So he says, on the other hand, the right way to approach is sense and respond. Sense the environment, sense the changes that are happening, and respond to it quickly. It is almost the example he uses is, how do you ride a bicycle? Right. So, and then he also uses our own Mother Earth, how nature responds to its challenges. There's no planning committee there. There's no board of directors there. But when changes happen, surprise changes, climate changes happen. When winter comes early or spring is delayed, the living organisms around us adapt and change. So there are, you mentioned KPIs earlier at one point of time. I would say this, I think KPIs are good, but let the individuals decide what their KPIs are. And don't just, thrust down from the top, here are the numbers you got to achieve.
So how do you ensure that there is enough profits to sustain the operation?
I mean, that's why I said that I think you commented when I said profit and purpose, maybe purpose priority over profit. I didn't say that, by the way.
Yes.
So to me, I did not say that. So it's profit and purpose. Yes. So I don't understand your question in that sense that a self-organized company is perfectly capable, if not more capable, of focusing on profits, because there is a sense of ownership in every decision you take. So when you have the sense of ownership, I actually think it is a better way of ensuring a profitable operation. I mean, again, when in 2001, when 9/11 happened and the airline industry collapsed, every airline laid off thousands and thousands of people. The one airline that did not lay off a single person was Southwest Airlines. In fact, so in Southwest Airlines, employees voluntarily took a pay cut to protect each and everybody else's jobs. And when the economy turned back up, Southwest Airlines was always considered one of the most profitable airlines. Some of these things I'm talking about, Southwest Airlines did a lot of these things years ago, and Wall Street challenged them that you're a Wall Street listed company. You're ultimately you'll be punished by the shareholders. Actually, truth is shareholders rewarded it. And many times it is told that Southwest Airlines turned out to be a stock that's the best return on investment if you invested $1 in that company. So it's that we have never found that our way of engaging all of our employees, our way of listening to everybody's voice, our pushing down decision making to whoever needs to take the decision has played no role. I would say has played no negative role in our profitability.
Great. So now you are the VP of EM Martin. So let's say I want to understand more the decision-making process. So let's say you want to take a decision. So do you need to make an advice process before taking a decision?
Yes. So there are a number of things. It does the decision, for example, there are two kinds of decisions. Decisions that don't impact others and decisions that impact others. So there are certain decisions where it does not impact others. Then we do what is called as a simple advice process. In the simple advice process, I set a bunch of advisors, I talk to them, and I get advice from all of them, and then take my decision.
Can you give an example?
But if I'll give a simple example that I want to upgrade my computer. I want to buy a new computer, or I want to buy, I want to create a better working environment in my house. I want to buy some office furniture. So there's money involved in this, right? So I'm taking these examples because it doesn't matter if I'm a recruiter, if I'm a front office person, if I'm an accountant, or I'm a vice president. These are all decisions that involve money, but don't impact other people.
Okay.
So there, I take advice from the right people who should be my advisors. Are there two, three other people who are working from home? Have they done something similar like this? And obviously, I would take the advice of my finance person. Okay, Murali, your group's budget. This is what's been going on in your budget. You're behind your numbers. You're ahead of your numbers. Whatever. These are my inputs, but it's your decision to make. So then I decide. But supposing I want to say, I find that I'm not able to do a good work-life balance. So I want to move to a 4-day working week. I don't want to work 5 days. If I say that, merely taking advice of others and me deciding is not good enough, because when I work only 4 days, it impacts other people. It impacts dozens of people, team leaders, other people who in my group, people in India, people in Canada. A lot of people get impacted. Okay, what happens on Friday that Murali is not available every Friday? When something like that happens, we call it a consent process. So it's not enough if I take somebody's advice. I have to announce my decision, and everybody has to consent to my decision.
Okay.
So think about this, and this. We said when COVID came, we said we should not hire any more employees, freeze the workforce that you have, because we don't know what the future holds. And now we find that some area demand has picked up. So we have a huge, there's a customer who's potentially asking us to fill 500 positions in the next few weeks. It's a big deal for us, right?
Mhm.
Which means we may need more recruiters than we have.
Mhm.
Even in that situation, I cannot simply say, let's go hire 3 or 4 more people. I have to go through an advice process
Mhm. And is it
to
lengthy?
make sure that everybody's voice. Is it?
Is it a lengthy process?
No, I think most advice processes get done in about a week's time.
Mm.
But we use a tool called Lumio on which we post these things, and we can set that. Okay, this advice process is an urgent one. This is going to the window closes in 2 days' time, so please respond within 2 days.
Mhm.
And we follow it up with email to everybody to make sure everybody responds.
Mhm.
And people will respond if they have something to offer. Somebody says, this is nothing to do with me. I don't have to add my voice to it.
Mhm.
Right? So,
Really very interesting views about how we are dealing with the teal concept, the advice process, and separation. If this decision relates to you only or it affects others, then you have to include others and get their consent, even you are the VP. So this is a new a new way of of taking decisions. And you said it pays off. There is a payoff for that, and this is what's
it goes back to this. I think the payoff is this. That's what I was saying before. When an individual feels he's being treated with dignity and respect, the payoff is guaranteed.
Hmm.
And I think that is what is missing in today's business world. People go to work and come back like machines, don't feel they are honored or their dignity is maintained. So that's a group of people I call them as I go to work because I have to go to work.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, very interesting. Oh, okay. The B Corp now. How do you include the B Corp mission? Because B Corp is a mission. It's not something that's individual. It's everyone has to be to have this kind of benefit mindset to himself and others. So, how do you operate uh, with this mindset of benefit to others?
We have what is called as a stewardship council, and the stewardship council, the members change every year. All the members are from within the company, so we give away 10% of our profit to charities every year. And in the stewardship council, that determines where this charity money goes. And then we also use a tool called Benevity, in which our employees are encouraged to log in their volunteering hours. A lot of our people volunteer, and the company matches the donations that employees make to charitable causes. And then every year, there's one day celebrated as a B-Corp Day by all B corporations globally. On that day, it's a considerable expense. When you think about a whole day's productivity,
Mhm.
we are very happy to give up the productivity for that day and instead focus on that day to committing ourselves to social causes in and around our community.
Mhm.
You could be working uh, in a homeless shelter in Canada. Our India employees could be spending that night doing something for an orphanage. In other words, we give up 8 hours times the number of employees of the company. All those hours are given to work for charitable causes.
Mhm. Great. You mentioned that you are giving 10% of the profit to community, and you mentioned about volunteering. If employees volunteered with money, company is going to make the same amount. So this volunteering is on top of the 10% of the profit, correct?
Yes.
Great. طيب, how do you benefit the suppliers?
I think it is in our case, since we are not a product company,
Hmm.
right? So we are a services company.
Yep.
So to me, it's a little more complex in terms of, it's not a company that we buy raw material from somebody else, a machinery from somebody else. So I think it is more a question of honor as to how well you treat your suppliers. So it is difficult for me to explain that beyond that, because we don't have the traditional supply chain in a company, right?
Do you treat your employees as a suppliers in this case?
Do I treat our employees as suppliers? No,
Mm.
not at all. That's what I'm saying. This is in a human services industry where we have contractors. We have who are working on projects at our clients. But I would not use the word, so they're definitely not supply. But even there, the contractors also, I think, every year we go through an exercise of selecting one or two contractors to go and do a charitable piece of work. I think there was a contractor who went to Cambodia and spent six weeks doing something in the local community there. The year before, I think one of our contractors went to a Latin American country and did charitable work there. And we picked up the tab for the entire thing.
Mm-hmm. So you encourage employees of your contractors to go and make good in other areas as well.
Yes, so obviously we have 1,500 contractors. So we find out who's interested, and they give us a project report kind of a thing. This is what I want to do. This is what I plan to do. This is why I want to do. And then we select one person every year, and we sponsor that person to whether you want to go to Guatemala or whether you want to go to Cambodia or wherever, and do a community-based project there.
Mm-hmm.
Because we have employees and we have contractors.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a way of engaging even the contractors in saying how they work for a different kind of a company than any other staffing company they could be working for.
You as a staffing company, when you recruit for yourself, now you are dealing with B-Corp and you are dealing with a teal way of management. So now the employees, when you hire employees for your company, how do you give them training to understand this mindset? And how long does it take? How do you do it?
It could take, we have we call it a teal sponsorship. So when a new employee joins, he or she immediately becomes part of a teal sponsorship program. So we attach the person to an experienced person in the company who's well versed in teal practices. And that person's responsibility is to make sure you steward this new employee over the next, I think sometimes it's anything between 90 to 180 days. And every now and then somebody fails it. I will tell you that much. There are people who would say, I'm not really a fan of all your teal practices. And then we may say, okay, we made a mutually wrong decision, a wrong choice. And then we part ways,
So this experience.
But you're right. That's very important. This person has to hold the hand of the new employee and teach him or her the practices, how we do things here. Otherwise, that person will feel like, where have I landed? Completely feeling lost.
So for some, it looks to be a puzzling thing, and for others, they enjoy it, like yourself.
Oh yes, obvious. Oh yes. It is not easy, but I think at the core, every human being wants dignity and respect, right? And I think sometimes when you hire senior people who are used to their authority, they find it difficult to give up their authority. What do you mean I can't do this? What do you mean I can't do that? No, you can't. You cannot do such things here. It's difficult to digest for some people.
So your value proposition for your employees is dignity and respect. And the trade-off,
sure.
The trade-off will be the ego and power.
Okay, Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say power, because being treated with dignity and honor and respect can be very powerful. Uh, so, right. So I don't think, but yes, I don't think the ego has a place.
Mm-hmm. This is very interesting to hear from a for-profit company. This is very interesting.
Yep.
Great. Now there is a buzzword now called the future of work. People are talking a lot about future of work. Should we proceed as a business community as though it does not exist, or is it already in existence and something we should expand upon?
I don't know, Ahmed, what is future of work? To me, when I look at that grim statistics of 13% or 14% of the world is actually engaged at work, and if that is a present, I'm ready for the future. Because that present is what has led us to this mess that we all are in, right? So to me, anything going away from that is a better future. So I really think that even in these 6 years I've been with this company, how much teal has progressed could well be the pointer to me. To me, the future of work in my mind is a future that all human beings are wanting to go to work and having fun at work and are being super productive, right? And I think it's possible, as more and more companies open their eyes, that so much of human power is not harnessed in the current way of thinking. So if you unleash that power, you're talking about millions and millions, in fact billions of people's intellect and power. That when that is unleashed, to me, that speaks for a very bright future ahead of us.
Actually, I'm very interesting in what you are saying, that you are showing a new management philosophy, which is not there. Yeah, I did not study in my university, and I don't think it is widely lectured or given to students in universities. So how IAM Martin is contributing in educating the business community or the fresh graduate or something? Are you doing something tangible? Have you done, let's say, a center or an institute to promote this kind of education and learning?
Not so far. Occasionally, we go to universities in India to hire fresh graduates. There have been a couple of times, and those universities have invited me to talk to their students. And in front of the professors, and I used to tell the professors that I'm going to say things that you may not agree with, your management books don't agree with. So, but I think it's more participating in B corporation meetings and stuff like that. But we don't have a formal institute to me. I think that will be also a little presumptive, because we are students ourselves. We are learning this ourselves. We are making mistakes ourselves. So, and I think it's for all of us to collectively, but I think it would be good to have a repository of all this knowledge and wisdom somewhere. And that's something worth thinking about.
Yes, because when you mentioned about Frederick Laloux book, and that there are other companies following, like Favi, you mentioned Favi and IAM Martin and a lot of other. So maybe I don't know, but maybe this is something you may consider as a people who believe in this business mentality and mindset, that something should be done to formalize this kind of learning and spreading it, because you feel it and you think this is the humanity and this is how we can move forward. So it would be nice as well. Yeah, I know about this through my search through internet, but as a formal institution, I don't know. As a formal curriculum in university, I don't know if it exists. So this is I hope that you can, as companies, you can think of this way, because it's nice that you experience this kind of management every day and you feel it, but as well to institutionalize this in one way or another, or to do it some way. This will ensure the continuity and the sustainability of the idea and its growth. This is my hope.
Hope you're right.
Great. It was very interesting talking to you, Murali. I really appreciate your time. I really appreciate your insights and the wisdom you have shared with me and all the listeners. I think although that in our part of world, this is a very new concept, and I think as well in the Western it's still emerging. So everyone can even learn from that, and everyone can have a thought, at least one thought out of what you have mentioned, to take a different decision in their lives and other people's lives. Thank you for sharing that, Murali.
It was my pleasure. Thank you very much.
Dear listeners, in the second episode of the Values and Leadership podcast, we will share the secrets of success from another leader in business. Listen next month to learn more about the modern workplace and how leaders are working to create purposeful impact in business. Thank you.